Hello everybody, welcome to Sure Shot Archery. Anthony here, and in this video, I think it's time to further test out the patching of my target. So underneath here, I have 9 sections of target, and one of them, the one in the center, I patched several months ago, and it's been holding up quite well. So now, I'm going to go through the process of patching the rest of them, and just doing a little spot patching on the one in the middle because I only poured in the center of the target and I didn't do the corners. So this video is me just rebuilding my target, and I'm going to test it out and see how it goes. So hopefully in the future I can make a video telling you guys how great this particular material is for patching targets, and maybe it could be a good way for you to save money. Now, real quick, you're probably wondering, Anthony, you're going to tell us what the material is. So the material is a urethane foam. It seems like it's a material that's used in a lot of other products. The foam, in a small amount, it comes in a liquid, but in small amounts, it's pretty cost effective. But if you were going to build your own target out of it, you would build one. You could buy one from a manufacturer cheaper than you could build one yourself. So if you already have a target, such as I do here, and you need to patch it, this could be a great route for you to go. So far, my results of just doing this center core here have been great, but we'll see. Time will tell, and so will arrow count. Alright, so now that we got this down, you can see my patch piece here, looking pretty good. It's got some holes in it, but holding up pretty well overall. Probably a good 10-15,000 shots in it, give or take. I was keeping track to an extent, but since switching from indoors to outdoors and everything in between, I got a little lost on my numbers. Of course, this is easier to keep track of when you're shooting 70 meters, because you basically just count all the arrows that are, in this area here. But from a damage perspective, this piece here is really terrible. This is in bad shape. My whole hand fits inside. This one's not too bad, but I can stick my hand almost all the way through and out the back. This one is horrendous. This one I can stick my hand and arm all the way through. Some of these are also kind of sad, and if we turn this around, you can see the rest of the extent of this story. There's my patch, holding pretty good. This is a weak spot that I need to fill some more. Sad there. There was actually a squirrel trying to move in here at one point, a couple years ago, but still. And you can see I got a lot of points of interest that need to be patched up so that I don't have any arrows trying to sneak their way through my target and then, causing damage to themselves or to something else. With that too, the wood bracing on here is looking pretty sad, so I may end up replacing this during this video, just because I don't think it's going to last that much longer. It's the original wood from when I purchased this target, and I don't know, it was kind of flimsy wood to start with. So I might take some 2x4s and make a really sturdy one, and then drill some holes in the side so that I can put a handle on each side, or maybe all 4 sides. We'll see how it goes. Alright, well, we got a big pile of targets now. But as I kind of suspected, so there's metal inserts into the wood, and basically what they did is they put a metal bushing in there, and then the screws into that bushing. Well, after all these years, the bushing and screw are now one, and that's not going to be too helpful. I must have noticed it earlier on because there was actually some screws, regular screws, that were screwed into this to help hold it together even more. So yeah, this frame here is kind of trash. So we'll definitely be making a new frame as soon as I clean up my Target mess I got going on down here, and I figure out a way to wrap these up so that we can pour new centers for each of them. Alright, so we got all 9 pieces laid out here. This is probably where I'm going to fill them. The thing is, with the urethane foam and the fact that it's a liquid, it's really sticky, and I just don't want that to get over anything. I don't want to do it on the deck or anything, so if I do it on the rocks here, it shouldn't pick up the rocks because we're going to lay down this nice barrier of cling wrap. We're going to be wrapping each of these 9 pieces in its own cling wrap, and then I will punch holes in the cling wrap where I want to pour material. Before we do this though, I'll probably go through here and probably rip out some of these loose pieces. That's not going to help us. Rip out those loose pieces. That way the urethane foam can adhere to the most structural parts of these targets, even though some of these are really sad, really sad. And then I'll wrap them up, and then we'll go about filling them. I'm also going to be measuring the old frame, and I'm going to be making my own new frame for this target. Basically the same dimensions. I might have to vary it a little bit because I think I'm going to use 2x4s, and then I'm just going to drill them together with screws. Nothing fancy. I don't take apart my target that often, so I don't need bolts and everything to hold these together. I think that's overkill, at least at this point in time. Okay, so now that we have emptied out a lot of the loose pieces in these 9 targets, we need to now wrap them in cling wrap. And this is going to provide us kind of like a mold or a barrier to try to keep this expanding foam from expanding everywhere we don't want it to expand, because we essentially just want to make this thing whole again. We don't need to add extra pieces to it. It works well enough on its own that way. So cling wrap is a really cheap and affordable way to make this happen. And if the cling wrap does stick to the urethane, it's not really the end of the world. If you use something like wood or whatever, it sticks to metal, it sticks to wood. It's a monster. You don't want to wear nice clothing around it. It destroys fabrics. So with that, I'm going to go wrap up all these, and that should be quite a process in itself. You probably want to just take it out of the box if you can, and then proceed to kind of just wrap around it. You're going to want a couple layers aside. See, as you can see, it's kind of bunching up a little bit. That'll dissipate as I wrap around this target. We'll keep going. Woo. And now we'll start expanding out because we got our middle kind of done. So now we need to work towards the edges. There we go. And basically you're looking at 3 full rotations per section. And there's probably 3 sections, aside, because I've moved this around quite a bit, and we're just starting to work on finishing the front and back sides. All right, and now we just leave it how it is. We make a U-turn, and we start going the other way now. And possibly lose it. All right, and we're almost there. We now got to migrate over to this last side over here. All right, ta-da! There we have it. It's nicely wrapped up, and that should pretty much stop the urethane from escaping. Of course, I got 8 more to do behind me here, and from there we're gonna proceed to cut holes in our cling wrap we just wrapped this with, so that we can actually pour the urethane into here so it can expand. So, yep, let's begin. Okay, so we wrapped them up. Yes, there's 2 unwrapped right here. Honestly, the holes aren't as bad as I thought on these 2, so I'm just gonna try to like spot pour on them. We'll see how terrible of an idea that is. Generally, from my experiences, you really want to wrap them in this cling wrap, this plastic wrap, so that you don't have a mess. We'll see how this goes. I'm gonna lay them all out now with some space in between them, cut holes in them for where I want to pour, and then mix up some material and pour it in. And let's see how it goes. So while our foam is drying in the targets out there, we need to do something about the frame. So I measured this frame and then added a little bit. So basically we're going to make a 54.5 by 54.5 inch frame, and it's gonna be a nice square. We'll drill them together with some screws. We'll be making it out of 2x4, which is significantly thicker than this 1x ½ inch. I don't even know what you call this, but this is gonna be a lot more solid. And maybe for 2 of the sides I'll drill some holes to put straps in. That might happen later on. We'll see. Alright, so it's been a few hours. The foam is, well, still foam, but it's not squishy anymore. It's pretty hard. Good enough to stop arrows. So now it's time to release most of these pieces from their molds, and some of these other ones we just need to do a little trimming maybe on top just to get them a little flatter if we need to. But overall it looks like it's turned out actually pretty good. So let's see what they look like without the wrappers on them. Alright, so we managed to finish it. We did make a little mistake up here on the top. I didn't take into account that we need to really compress this. So one of the 3 boards needs to be 52 inches. The other ones can be a little bit longer so that they can actually mount, screw into this top board here. So you could do 3 at 54 inches and then 1 at 52. That way you can compress it and then drill it together. We got a little extra here, and we're maybe a little short there. I don't know, not the biggest deal in my book, especially for the first time trying to rebuild this frame. Pretty cool that we got the handles to transfer over to this one. Just cut them off and screwed them in. Other than that, this is looking pretty solid. It patched up pretty nicely. There's definitely some spots that may need a little bit more goo in them, but overall it's pretty awesome. And it's great to not have to spend a lot of money to make this target last even longer. I'm assuming at this point I could go many more years shooting at this target before I actually have to completely replace it, because I can just keep filling these holes. So now let's get it back up to the target stand and put a face on and see how it looks all nicely completed. It is a bit heavier with these 2x4s, as you know, the compressing border, the frame of this target. We did go with pressure treated instead of standard. We got a lot of insects and stuff around here, so I don't know. It kind of seemed like this would be a better choice. We'll find out. And look, it's back up. It's looking great. As you can see, some of our patch spots, but nice and solid. I did end up putting some come-alongs to this to get it straightened out a little bit better and compressed a little bit better, just because I really don't want to lose an arrow through this target again, especially since I spent all this time patching it. It would be a shame that I lose one now because I don't have it compressed enough where it slips through one of these seams. So I went ahead and I fixed that already, so it's looking great. It's definitely heavier with the 2x4s, and well, probably the patch job too, because there wasn't any foam in a lot of these holes that I filled in, and now we have foam. With that, there will be links in the description down below to Amazon, where I picked up the foam for fixing this target. The trial size of foam is probably good enough to fix like one spot or maybe two spots, depending on how much damage you did. For all of mine, you're gonna need probably a couple of those. Maybe buy one at a time so you don't have like too much extra laying around. That way you can get a good idea for how much it expands and things like that. Other than that, hopefully you enjoyed watching. I can't wait to slap a face back onto this target and get shooting arrows into it again, because it definitely took some time for the whole target rebuild here.